Riches in the Hitches, an RV park investment podcast, takes you behind the scenes of the RV park industry where park owners, investors, and other industry professionals share their unique journeys, challenges, and triumphs. From transforming raw land into a thriving campground to navigating the ups and downs of managing guests, this podcast uncovers the untold stories of the people who make RV life possible and the strategies behind building a successful investment. Whether you're a park owner seeking insights, an aspiring investor exploring opportunities in outdoor hospitality, an RVer curious about life on the other side of the check-in desk, or just someone who loves hearing entrepreneurial stories, we are excited for you to join us as we find riches in the hitches.
Welcome, listeners, to Riches in the Hitches, a podcast where we go in depth and behind the scenes with RV park owners. Today, we have Ryan Groene here from Treeside Capital, which has a pretty decent portfolio of MH and RV parks. So, Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Robert. I appreciate it, and hopefully we can get some value added to your listeners, mainly on focusing on the RV stuff today, which we both know
Yeah,
fairly well and love the space. So,
I'm 100% confident that we'll get some value out of that, and I will get some out of it from you, Ryan. So we're going to start off with a quick connect round, just a lightning round. I'm going to throw out some questions particular to your RV parks. You throw them back as quick as you can. You said if you got a great memory in our pre-show, we're going to put it to the test here. Okay, so your RV parks, where are they? What's the locations?
so we have 7 RV parks: Ohio, Tennessee, and Kentucky. We have
Okay,
3 in Kentucky, 2 in Ohio, and 2 in Tennessee.
okay,
Majority are type of RV parks is mainly a mixture of everything: transient, seasonal, and long term.
okay.
We have all 3.
Yep, that was my second question. Okay, uh, how many sites are these roughly?
So total, our largest is 280 sites, and our
Nice.
smallest is 45. Mixture normally around the other 6 are 68, 90, 70, not including the hotel, and then
Okay,
115. So
great.
all over the
All right.
map.
Where did you find these deals? Where did you find them?
So typically we're direct to owner,
Yeah.
right? We're typically cold calling, direct mailing, texting, just showing up on site, referrals. That's the best bet. Of all the deals, of all 7 of those deals, 6 of them were direct to owner. One was an off-market broker deal.
Great. All right. And then the real hard question here, how did you finance them? What's your capital structure? Are they all the same or each one of them a little bit different?
So our capital stack is typically a little bit of everything with these. One is a traditional bank, right? We put down 30%,
Hmm.
to traditional bank loan. It's like a small commercial bank. The other was seller financing, full seller financing. The guy actually directly off the bat was like, "Hey, I want to finance this. I understand
100%?
that." Not 100%. Well,
Oh, okay.
100% off the bat, right? So we
Gotcha.
put down, I think, 20 or 25%. Had good non-recourse 10-year term. Is an assumable loan. That's probably our best loan that we have of the portfolio because it's seller financing and it's
Yeah.
non-recourse.
Yeah.
We don't have any SBA financing. And then the other kind of mixture is some national lenders where we also have some, like a small seller second, which may
Okay.
allow you to put a smaller down payment, right? Let's say the bank makes
Yeah.
you put down 30%. If the seller carries back another 10%, some banks will consider that as part of their overall down payment. So you only have to come out of pocket 20% versus traditional 30. So.
Very creative. Well done. Well done. Okay. All right. So let's jump into just learning a little bit more about you. Tell us how, you know, who are you, where you come from, and how did you end up in the RV space? Because it's a pretty unique spot.
Yeah, so me myself, how I got started, I graduated college in 2012, 2013. Took me an extra
Okay.
year. I transferred, played baseball in college, got a degree in finance. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad actually in college. I still
Yep.
remember sitting at my student job reading it. I'm like, there's no way I can go work in investment banking or private equity on Wall Street. I went to Wall Street one time. I didn't like New York, so I was like, I'm gonna probably live in Cincinnati or Chicago. Cincinnati is where I'm from. Graduated college, worked for a Fortune 500 company, kind of doing financial analysis and investments. Did that for a number of years. I actually stumbled on the mobile home park space. Knew I
Okay.
wanted to be in real estate, looked at all kinds of asset classes. I looked at flipping a mobile home, And then with
Hmm.
mobile homes, a lot of times, as you know, if you've owned a park, there's some RVs in there, right? So you're kind of already, there's a road to RV park ownership already kind of embedded in MH. So come 2020, 2021, lower interest rates, really competitive environment, mobile home parks, we started calling on other asset classes. And what stuck was RV parks. We already kind of knew the asset class. I myself was a camper. I grew up camping in
Yeah.
RVs. So I've been in many campgrounds already. I actually also had like a probably a long time dream ago, like where I'd be retired, maybe 60, 70 years old, owning an RV park, believe it or not.
Yep.
So speed that up. We started calling owners, sending mailers, and we put together 7 deals within 24 months. And then
Wow.
yeah, it was really aggressive really quickly. So we kind of
Yeah.
got ahead of our skis a little bit operationally. So we had to kind of back off and hire before we outgrew ourselves from a personnel standpoint. So
Sure.
what led us to the RV park space was kind of already being in the asset class a little bit,
Yeah.
but it was more opportunistic. We were getting the same debt that we were getting in MH. So we said,
Hmm.
hey, we already own in these areas, so let's go ahead and push the ball forward and buying them. And then what we found out is, which a lot of your listeners will find out if they ever buy an RV park, is it's very operationally intensive and it's
Yes.
it's a real estate business, or it's business disguised as real estate, right? It's a hospitality
Right.
business through and through. So that is something that no guru or coach will tell you is that it's a fully 100% a business more than it is real estate. So
Yeah. There's no passive investment in RV parks unless you're, investing into something
correct,
like Treeside or our company, right, as a limited partner into syndication. But if you're an owner, it's an active deal for sure.
correct, correct,
Yeah.
correct.
You might be the first person I've ever talked to that said as a kid they had the dream to grow up to be an RV park owner. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I just remember having that memory, maybe like as like, I owned it when I was older, it was like had my kids
Right.
there. I don't know what it was. It was just that's always something I've had in my head, so it's kind of funny,
Okay.
but
So you
yeah.
guys, you have a partner in Treeside. You have a couple partners there.
Correct. So it's me and another gentleman. Miles, we're the two general partners. We
Okay.
take investors, typically do a typical syndication structure, which I'm happy
Yeah.
to dive into or keep it high level. Basically, we
Yeah.
take passive investors, pay a preferred return. We sign on the debt, we run the park, and then we typically hold it for 5 to 7 years. And the hold
Yeah.
period for anybody that's a syndicator or a real estate investor as a whole really cycles around the debt, right? So if we have
Right.
10-year debt, we'll hold it for 10 years. The way we run our portfolio is we hold it for the long term, but everything is always for sale. So,
Right.
and I say that because if somebody comes and offers me some price that I never thought it would be worth, I should probably sell it because essentially you're buying it for that price if it's a real
Yeah.
offer. And I didn't say that, Sam Zell did, so he's much smarter than I did. I mean, he passed away, but he's one of the largest campground owners in America, same with MH, and they've never sold a single park, I do believe, to this day. So,
Yeah. Which I'm guilty of doing the same thing. I have a 5 year, plan, and then someone comes along and offers you something that you can't refuse, and you sell it, and then you look back 10 years, you're like, man, I should have kept it. But hindsight's 2020. I also love the quote. It's really hard to go broke making a profit. Um, so we continue to push there. So did you guys start? And I know you mentioned like so the initial entry into here was MH, right?
correct.
Yeah, so you bought a couple MH parks, some RV components there, and then sort of researched and said, hey, there's an opportunity here to move into the truly RV park component of it.
Correct. Yeah. So I bought my first mobile home park. I got into the business in like 2015 into MH
Okay.
business. But
Yeah.
I've been exposed to the campground world since I was a kid. My parents were campers. I'm a camper, so I'm familiar with campgrounds, right?
Yeah.
And I've looked at them over the years. I just never kind of pulled the trigger on them.
Yeah.
So yeah, we bought a handful of MH over the years from 2017 to 2021, 2020, somewhere around
Yep.
there. And then the MH space started getting really competitive, and
Hmm.
it was really like deals were trading at one, two, three caps. I sold a couple parks around five, six caps, like legitimately, right? I mean, interest rates were essentially, it was essentially you were getting free money essentially, right? So you're in an ultra competitive environment. So that's why we switched gears. We actually bought some storage, and then we bought some RV parks, and so we're looking at everything, right? Kind of threw
Mm.
everything at the wall. RV park stuck. We started
Mm,
getting a bunch of feedback. We actually we were a little bit ahead of the curve, but not too much, right? Now it's really competitive. A lot of MH buyers have bought RV and then they're switching back, or it's just it's become a little bit harder to put deals together because you have higher interest rates, sellers that know their parks are worth more because they're getting more calls. And then you just have an industry that had become a little bit more professionalized than what it was.
yeah.
Kind of the same with MH. So yeah, the transition happened. We still buy both. So we're still
Mm,
MH and RV buyers.
right.
Um, but kind of going forward, we're a little bit more selective on the RVs, only because it's like I said in the beginning, it's much more of a business than it is a real estate kind of collect, rent, evict people, enforce rules type of deal. So
Right. So you're obviously a smart guy, degree finance, and you mentioned that you grew up as an RVer. Where have you seen some advantages or things that you've noticed as a customer that really have translated as an RVer, as a camper, that have translated now as over to an owner?
I would always say you want a clean campground, regardless of the price. Clean
Right.
is like a clean entrance, clean sites. Even if it's all gravel, make sure your grass is cut. Like one of my biggest pet peeves as an owner, and maybe it's just my OCD or whatever, even
Yeah.
though just as an owner, if I go and there's weeds, like where places there shouldn't be weeds, I'm like, why did we not spray this? Why did we not? Like I'm pretty meticulous about that stuff because as a customer, if I'm coming in and I'm paying whatever rate and that's coming out of my paycheck, I want it to look nice, right? Even if it's,
Hmm.
only $20 a night, I still would expect that it would be nice, right? No garbage laying around, like just
Hmm.
simple things. It's very simple. Most customers are camping not for the amenities, majority, not always. A lot of them are there to get away from whatever their work life. They're there to get away. It's their second place home. They're there to enjoy vacation or whatever they're there to do. And then you have the amenities, right? That normally amenities are a plus, but majority of people are there to get away from something. It's an outlet. It's you work 9 to 5 and then you go camp, right? You forget about your 9 to 5. It's the same reason why people go to sporting events and do all kinds of things on the weekends that they normally don't do during the week, right? And then you have a different subset of customers that are full timers, and we can get into that, or retirees, all that good stuff. So, but my main thing is a clean and customer focused, kind of manager, maintenance staff, right? Somebody that's proactive. That's what we're looking for. If there's a problem, we fix it. We may not run all
Yeah.
5-star resorts, even if it's a 3-star resort. I still expect the same thing, right? Actually, that's just how it should be, right? It all
Hmm.
starts from us, and then it kind of filters down. So, and that sounds crazy. Like, am I really getting on people for a blade of weed, like weeds everywhere? No, but it's the expectation of like, hey, let's spray it, or maybe we got to contact our vendor. Like, why is it not done? So
Yeah.
type of mentality. I get, exactly
Clean, safe, and friendly, right? Clean, safe, and
correct,
friendly. That's what we all want.
and
It's got to be the
and
baseline.
and customer focused, right? People are nice. If people have an issue, kind of a little bit of empathy. If there is an issue, if there's a legit issue, if people are just complaining to complain, my managers have enough leeway to kind of, let it go in one ear and out the other. Because if people are gonna, 80% of your problems come from 20% of your customers. That's just how it
Yeah.
is. So, and never everybody's not going to be happy. If they are, you're doing something wrong, I think. So.
Yeah. For for sure. You're never gonna make everyone happy. Yeah. Yeah. So as an owner, when you both shopping for a park, getting ready to buy a park, or buy a park, and then you're now the operator, what amenities, if you what's your top three amenities that you're looking for in a park?
As an owner or a customer?
Yeah, really either. Like, so yeah,
So
as an owner and as a customer.
yeah, so as an owner, I prefer no amenities because that means my insurance is lower, my operating costs lower. But
Yeah.
but in reality, people want a pool. People
Yep.
want, some type of maybe a walking trail, maybe some type of clubhouse with activities. Depends on the type of park, right? Too. If it's a transient park, you want more amenities because you want to
Hmm.
attract people, right? Or if you're on some type of body of water, that's a big one. I found that the closer we are to some lake or river, the higher occupancy we have,
Hmm.
outside of kind of like our extended stay um, parks that are in larger cities. So I'm always looking for a population draw, right? Like I'm looking like I want to be in the middle of stuff, right off a highway. I want easy in and out access. The reason we don't own in like Montana or some of the larger national parks are closer to is one, I think it's really hard to get to those. And when gas prices are $10, if they ever get that, people aren't going to travel there. People are going to travel to what's close. We've seen this kind of run up in RVs where there's largest number of sales, largest number of new people. That will come back down. So I want to be in areas where it's easy to get to. People, you're within a population draw of, a million plus people within 3 hours. We're looking for the easy in and out access at our transient parks. And then our extended stay parks, we're still looking for a draw to that area, right? Why are people there? Within an hour of the metro is typically what we're looking for. But number one is body of water, and then
Hmm.
probably a pool and some type of clubhouse. And then other than that, people don't seem to care about like restaurants as much, or people want ice, food, ice,
Yeah.
wood, and propane. Those are the three ticket items. Other than that, people can buy their own beer, buy their own snacks, and cook their own food. So
Yeah. How do you think about Wi-Fi? Do you think about Wi-Fi network as a utility, as an amenity? Do you upcharge it? For us, we've really started to consider that basically a utility, and that we're trying to provide high speed, like as an amenity to all parks. Like it's almost a requirement at this point.
yes, so we have a variety of everything in our parks. We have where we have paid vendors to come in, make the
Hmm.
high-speed internet. It still never works. I don't care what you do. It's a mesh together network, and when you have 100 campers in tin cans trying to get on it, it's not going to work perfectly. It's just not. With the invention of Starlink and the more popularity of that, I think, and kind of hotspots, a lot of
Hmm.
people are like, I don't need Wi-Fi. One of our parks, we actually had no internet for a year. And
Okay.
people were like, people just got used to it. They used their
Yeah.
hotspots, they had Starlink. Obviously we apologized, but so we have a little bit of everything across our portfolio, but I would agree with you that it's a utility. So either
Yeah.
provide some basic, like a hotel does, some basic form of like a general Wi-Fi where people can check emails, maybe text message through their iPhone, but they can't stream services, right? That would be
Yeah.
an upcharge. So, and make people
Yeah.
pay for it, just like electric. We don't necessarily charge for water or sewer. We do charge for sewer if we dump their tanks, but
Okay.
Wi-Fi should be um, a upcharge and a utility because it costs us as owners a lot of money to maintain this system. So to set it up properly.
Yeah, we've run into that where we've hired companies. We had, and at the end of the day, we are now at this point, we buy all of our own equipment, we design it ourselves, we put it in there. And so we have now figured out how to provide, high speed Wi-Fi across the whole park, even when it's full with all theirs. But it is a crap ton more access points than what anyone would normally design. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, at this point, we own all of our own equipment and we put it in there in place. And then at some places we used to upcharge it, right, for the high speed side of it. But pretty interesting how that's evolving. And I would say that's one of the top questions I get from new builders of what do we do with the Wi-Fi and build that out. So. Hey, you mentioned a couple of challenges here, right? So, it's not all roses for sure. What are some of the bigger challenges you've had to face, and how have you overcoming them, or what's a challenge that's still out there that you're still trying to solve?
Yeah, so just from like a park standpoint, instead of like talking about operating a portfolio, which I'll dive into next,
Sure.
individual parks, the biggest hurdle is the size of the park and the type of park
Mm,
you want, right? The shorter the stay, the more the work and the more the
hmm.
employees, right? It's just the way it is. People expect more the shorter they stay. It's a weird thing, but people just do. And you're continually marketing. You're running a hotel at that point. The shorter the stay, you're basically in the hospitality business. The longer the stay, the less hospitality you can get away with because it's more of a necessity play, but you still want to provide good, clean, safe, not necessarily affordable, but housing in certain situations. You're housing people. So it's a different play. The biggest take from day to day is, managing people, right? That is the biggest kind of operational hurdle. When people quit, when people have issues, operating our portfolio as a whole is always it's a people business, and that's our biggest problem is just dealing with all the kind of nuances of management. We have 7 different parks, we have 1,000 plus customers. I mean, how do you deal with that day to day? We have weekly meetings. In the off season, I let my managers, I meet with them maybe twice a month when it's the off season, if we have off seasons. Um, just because they need a break, right? From the time we're open to the time we shut down, they are 24/7 typically. And a lot of it, what we found out is we have a budget, but we typically end up paying more than what we initially thought from a management standpoint, right? So the on-site manager. Some larger challenges we've run into lately is hiring, right? The work camper kind of is dying a little bit, is what I feel in certain scenarios, in certain areas. There's less people available, um, from what I found, and there's less qualified people. Like we used to post an ad a couple years ago, we'd get a slew of people. We posted one recently, and I had like 5 applications, and all of them were duds. So, or they wanted certain things and they had certain scenarios, and I'm like, I can't accommodate that. So it's more, I think, switching gears to like more of a local person is what we've kind of switched gears towards, like posting on Indeed and like actually
Hmm.
pitching it as a real job for somebody.
Right.
The work campers are great and they've helped us throughout the years. But I think it's kind of dying a little bit in certain places. So not as prevalent as what is was when people had a little bit more freedom when COVID
Yeah.
started. Now it's kind of starting to get back to regular life where people have to go to the offices. They realized, hey, living in a camper is a lot harder than what the internet led me to believe, right? And a lot of times these people living in campers are either young and single or they're retired and single. Or it's just the two of them and they just have always been minimalist, because people don't realize how hard it is to live in a camper full time. It is tough. So,
Yeah.
especially with
Yeah.
inclement weather.
Yeah.
So that's been our problems recently. In the beginning, it was just kind of getting our portfolio stabilized because we had bought so much and we had so many
Right.
employees, and hiring. But people's my number one thing always.
So you guys have you're self-managing, it sounds like you've created your own management company similar to how we do it, or are you outsourcing it out to a management company?
It's always in-house with us. We manage everything in-house, our self-storage, our MH, our RV, all of our RVs we manage daily. Not we manage daily, but we manage in-house. Me and Miles typically go there once a quarter or once a month, depending on the park.
Yeah.
But typically we have meetings every week with every manager, across our whole portfolio. It's typically half an hour to an hour. Obviously, if they have daily problems, we'll address them.
Yeah.
But normally
Yeah.
it's like, hey, this is actually about the operational efficiencies, right? I have it right here. It's cash on hand, occupancy, delinquency, profit and loss, and any unexpected items or projects we got going on. So that's
Do you
what we
use
meet
something
about every week.
like use like a system like EOS or Traction or something along those lines that you're adapting or
Yeah, so we've kind of implemented something like that.
yeah.
Not EOS to the degree of like what we would actually implement, but yeah, we have KPIs, key performance indicators that we deal with
Yeah.
on a weekly basis. All of our managers can log in. We use Rent Manager, which is a little bit antiquated for RV parks. We do use another system for our transient.
Hmm.
But anyways, they can log in. They have all the access on their phone, on their computer. They know what's going on. So we're not shy about the information,
Right.
because we want our managers and people to know like here's our budget, here's what we made, here's what we spent. Like we don't hide the numbers from them just because, and they already know. They're not dumb, right? They know what money's coming in. They know what's going out. They're the manager, right? They should know what is happening at the park. Now, if you want to hide your money from like the maintenance guy or somebody else, that's fine. That you don't have to show them that. But the manager should know what's going on. So,
Yeah, I mean they're running a business. I mean
correct.
they're day to day. That's our approaches to it. That they're literally running a business. As you said, it's not real estate. It's a real estate based business. And how is someone supposed to run a business if they don't have a P&L? They don't understand a P&L. They don't have even some decision making process. So yeah, we it's pretty interesting. There's tons of similarities in your story and ours, both in timeline and progression and how we approach it. So I find it pretty fascinating. So we're either both doing something well or both heading down down the wrong street together. That's pretty cool. Did you the decision to self-manage, was that something you guys decided in the very beginning, or did you have some other experiences that led you to that? Like what drove you guys to being where you're at today?
Uh, One is because coming from the mobile home park business, there's really no third party operator that's really efficient in my eyes, right? There's some
Mhm.
that'll get the job done, but um, one is mainly just I have more time to do it. I don't have a
Yeah.
W-2. I haven't had a W-2 in I 5+ years. I was I'm 34 now. So when I started, I was in my 20s. So I had a lot more time. I don't have any kids yet. That's kind of coming in the next probably couple years. So I kind of did it the reverse. I started
Mm,
extra young and kind of built the business, and then kind of we refined it along the way. Miles is older. Miles, he has kids. So
yeah.
he's like the family man, and he's got the that. So I travel. I kind of he would put the deals together, and I just go meet with the owners and put them together, and then that's just how it was. We were burning and churning, and then now it's a little bit more kind of getting our operations in order.
Yeah.
That's been the last 24 months is
Okay.
operational in order. Do we want to sell any? We have sold some. We sold one park recently, and
Yeah.
we're actually in the process of selling another one. And
Okay.
that's just really due to getting an offer we didn't think we'd ever get. And the other is just kind of timing in that market and timing in the partnership, right? Not
Yeah.
Miles and I, but other guys that we may have partnered with along the way. Um, so all good, but we've
Yeah.
had some bad. It's just how it happens in business. So
Yeah, for sure. So, you guys you're selling a couple properties, going full cycle on the RV one specifically. Who are you finding right now are the buyers out there that are approaching you that are real buyers? Are these other park owners? Are these people who are coming from other asset classes? What's your feel on who the buyers are right now?
majority of park buyers right now, I think it really depends on location and size, right?
Hmm.
So your larger parks are always still going to be your institutions.
Yep.
Um, groups, like when I say institutions, I mean larger Sun, ELS, like those groups, right? And then you kind of have the second tier of that, which would be me and you. Kind of, we
Mhm.
fall into, even though people don't realize it, we are technically private equity. We're not private equity in the traditional sense, but we are raising private capital and going out and buying assets. That's the definition of private
Right.
equity. So groups like us, I think, are the biggest buyers right now. And then kind of the MH guys, right? Traditional MH guys that have stumbled into the RV world, have bought some of them back and back off, some of them are hot and heavy. And then you have the traditional kind of, people that are going to own one or two or just one. Majority of people are only going to own one park in their lifetime. Very rarely do people go out and buy more than one of anything. And I mean, you and I are I sometimes have to like realize like, hey, we're unique where we own multiple, right? Even though we may hang out with other people all the time that have multiple, because that's just who we hang out with. I like
Yeah.
have to remind myself like multiple people don't own 5+ parks and they just don't understand. It's like it's a rarity. So for the listeners that want to go and buy one park, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, if that could be your job, right? That could replace your income. I mean, the RV park ownership is a path to getting away from whatever cubicle nightmare you're living in if you want that, right? That is a path
Yeah.
to progression, right? There's
It's
nothing
really a
wrong
great
with
one. I mean, it's
yeah, there's
great.
nothing wrong with buying a job, right? Even if you're buying a job, you can always replace yourself eventually, right? And a
Hmm.
lot of times, a lot of these RV parks, like I've thought about it, like I actually almost had my parents go and live in one of the RV parks and manage it. They weren't ready to retire yet, but that's like an idea, right? If you have an older parents that are maybe handy, they got some management skills. A lot of these RV parks come with a place to live, like a really nice place to live a lot of times. And what we typically do is we either put our manager in there, we put a long-term renter in there, or we make it an Airbnb. We have this really nice Airbnb in Kentucky, and we also have a hotel, but we put an Airbnb in it. It was the old owners, they live there. I mean, heck, I would live there. It's a really nice place. So you have that going for you too. So maybe you sell your main house, buy a campground, and go live in it. There's nothing wrong with that. So,
Yeah.
um,
As long as you underwrite it that way. I think that I've seen some people make a mistake of saying, well, if I work here, I do the work, I won't pay myself, and that's how you make the deal work. That's a mistake, right? You have to, if you pay yourself, totally fine, but make sure that's an actual expense to the property and from a decision-making purchase process. So I'm sure you've
correct.
saw that many times from the opposite perspective, where you go to buy a property and the seller, doesn't have any payroll for themselves, and then you start adding
Yeah.
that back in, like, man, this is not that great of a deal anymore. And like, well, it doesn't cost me anything. Well, it has to be built in from the buy, sell, et cetera, side of it. So, um, really, really cool. Okay, so you have, yeah, you're multi-park owner. You guys are primarily looks like kind of mid Appalachian, in that Midwest. Why that area? Why the geography there?
I think it just happened kind of naturally.
Okay.
I live down here in the Charleston metro area in South Carolina. So we've looked here. We've had parks in our contract here. It's just kind of the Southeast is ultra competitive. Everybody wants to
Mm,
own here. So there's been a little bit of just kind of, hey, we already owned parks in Kentucky. We already owned in Ohio. So we just kind of sent out mailers, said, hey, we own in the area. We'll be in the area. And a lot of it's just from familiarity of knowing that. I grew up in Cincinnati. That's where I'm from. So I kind of know every single park and the area that we own in. I've been in, maybe not in the campground, but I've been in that area. So that's kind of probably plays into it a little bit of just familiarity with the location.
mm.
And then there was a lot of opportunity there. There still is. There's still plenty of RV opportunity. And there's
Yeah.
actually a lot of opportunity to develop too, which is something
Yeah.
that actually is I look at it negative in the business just because I like to be more of a moat type of business, right? Like the Warren Buffett saying of like, it's a large barrier to entry, which it's still a large barrier to entry in the business, but it seems like there's like I'll go to our campgrounds and I'll look around, I'm like, oh wow, there's two new campgrounds that are literally being developed like in this market. So it's like, there's still it's like storage. You can still build them.
Still build.
MH you cannot build. Like it's just almost impossible. So still love the business. And that's just kind of how it happened was naturally due to location of what we already own.
Yeah. Do you have any success stories you can share with people from an investment perspective on the RV space? One you bought, how many years, sold it, something that we can latch onto and say, yeah, that's doable.
Yeah. So all of our deals were direct to owner except for one.
Okay.
And that's just being a product of just calling, sending mailers, and just answering your phone. If you don't like answering your phone, don't be in the business. I sometimes find myself in this like that's why I don't do the acquisitions. I do the on-site acquisitions. I'll do after the initial call. Miles is the sales guy. He really is. He's just he'll follow up, follow up, follow up. That's just how he is. So that's most of our success has been from him just calling and being
Yeah.
relentless, and then me taking the ball from there and nurturing the relationship,
Yeah.
moving into contract, doing DD, and closing. So yeah, a success story. I'll give some instances.
Sure.
We bought a park, roughly about 100 sites. We bought it for roughly $3 million. It was a transient park. We boosted NOI, and then we sold it for 2+ million
Okay.
net. After 36 months of ownership. Another
Yeah.
one is an RV park that we 45 site park that we own. We bought for how much was that? I don't even know. We bought for under 20,000 a pad.
Okay.
And we've gotten offers for well above that, but I think we're gonna keep it for now. We got a
Okay.
lot of acreage with 100 acres. So we really
Mm.
bought it for like I think we bought it for like 8,000 an acre, which
Yeah.
with income producing, which is fairly decent, depending on where you are. I mean, all of our parks were kind of winners going in. It's just
Yeah.
kind of how do
Because
you
you
operate
bought it
it?
at the basis, right? You bought it
Correct.
below what? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Or we just have really good debt. So like the cap rate, what we paid relative to what the interest rate was good at the time. Now, with interest rates being near 8%, 7.5%, or even 7%, is it a good deal now? Probably not as great as what it was.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where you get into this weird zone of like you got to really push rent and cut expenses to make your NOI as high as possible if you're going to refinance or sell. Or you just hold on and hope that interest rates come down because a lot of real estate's just about timing and which is tough to time the market. It really
Yeah.
is. But valuations were super high 24 months ago. They're still high, but people are not paying what they were, they're even a year ago. So
Yeah, we're
if
starting to
you're
really finally see some deal flow. We
correct.
only bought one property last year, and that was really just at the very end of 2024, right? Which
Hmm.
is, but we're already, we're on track right now. We've got three in the pipeline that we think we'll buy that are solid deals. It's been a long. There's been a
Yeah.
big gap between what the seller wants and what we think it's worth as a
Yeah.
buyer.
So Exactly. So 90% of our stuff is, operating good, operating positive, operating higher than maybe what we initially thought. And then the other 10% are we've either had some hiccups or
Hmm.
we've had some unforeseen stuff that has happened in the park, either due to management turnover, just partnerships that we may have partnered with guys on, or just other things that are not necessarily a bad buy, but bad operations.
You're right.
So.
Right. So I always get this question, and I'm sure you do too. I find a great deal in a park, et cetera. Where do I find the down payment? How, just kind of what's the bait? I assume you guys are syndicating this single asset or fund, et cetera, but maybe just break it down layman term, how you go about funding that 20 or 30%, which could be millions of dollars on most of these parks. How do you guys approach that? And, how would you go about getting that done?
Yeah, so let me break that question into two answers. One is for the listeners that are like, I'm going to buy this myself, or I'm going to
Yeah,
buy it with a friend or my family. Where most of those purchases are going to be sub $2 million or even $1 million, right? Still plenty of good parks out there. Most people don't realize they can borrow from their 401k, which is probably their largest investment asset. You can actually empty it if you want. I did it to buy my first mobile home park, but that was also 10 years ago. So would I do that now? Probably not. If I had, a couple 100,000 in there, I didn't have that much. You can borrow from your 401k. You can borrow from your house. I'm not advertising to do that. I'm saying you can.
sure.
And that's where your down payment can come from. You can take a private loan from somebody wealthy that you know, right? Hey, I'll pay you 10% on your money. That'll be your down payment. But then getting the bank loan may be a different scenario, right? And then kind of moving into the different tranche of kind of what we do is if let's say I'm going to buy a $10 million park, down payment's going to be 3 million. If we don't have it internally, right, which is what our goal is typically, right? We typically want to use our money on certain assets, and then the other assets will raise money on. We're typically always putting in on the deals, but my money seems to run out really quickly when we're doing a lot of deals. So we do deal by deal syndication. So we go out to investors, we raise the funds, we pay a preferred return, we do projections, all that good stuff. They get depreciation, and then we split up the cash flow and the profit at the end of it, right? So that's the
Yeah,
the, the high level on it. We go out and borrow. Essentially, you're borrowing money from investors, and that preferred return you're offering to pay is your rate of return that you're paying them to borrow the money, right? So let's say you borrow $1 million and you're paying an 8% preferred return. Your borrowing cost is 8% essentially, because you're saying, hey, on top of that money that you're giving me, I'm gonna give you an extra 8%.
yeah,
So when interest rates are 8%, it's really hard to and people can go put their cash in a T-bill for 5%. Why would you do that versus buying real estate unless you
right.
need the depreciation? It's just really sloppy right now, and it still will continue to be, I think, for the next 3 to 6 months once we get the new president in there, and some other operational stuff kind of settles down. But the market could fall out. You never know. So interest rates could stay where they are. A lot of
Yeah,
times it's not interest rates, it's price. That's normally where it comes down to. Prices are still really high relative to what they were. So,
yeah. Yeah, right now we're seeing, there's two motivations for any seller that we've found. It's price, right? Profit, getting the maximum out of it. And at some point it's a lifestyle change. It's a way of relieving those headaches of all the phone calls you mentioned. You got to answer the phone. It's a lot there. So, we're as buyers, right there, we're looking to see which one collides first. Is it the yeah, is the seller holding out for the maximum profit, or are they getting to the point where they're going to trade some profit for a change in lifestyle and sell the asset, take a nice chunk of money, and go off and go do something else? And I see that closing too. And for 2025, I think there's going to be a lot more transactions. The idea of holding out for the magical 2021, 2022 pricing is gone, or is, my opinion, quickly fading as a dream and,
yeah.
an aspiration. So,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, we have an asset that we're selling back actually to the owner we bought it from, believe it or not. So,
really,
it's just too small of a park for us to really
yeah,
operate efficiently. That's mainly what it was.
yeah.
So,
So now,
and they're their son's going to buy it with them. So, and the son's
Yeah.
going to run it. So that's
So
basically
you've
the
got a good
end
amount
of
of
the story.
experience here, 7 or 8 parks. What is the size that makes sense for me from this point forward? Looking hindsight, what makes sense for you from here on out?
So RVs are a loaded asset, right? You literally on your profit and loss and your income statement, you can have 10 different incomes. So just a bare bone RV park is what we prefer. I don't want a hotel. We have a 15 key hotel at one of our parks. We don't want that. We want a bare bones RV park where it's come in, stay, enjoy our pool, enjoy our water, whatever you got going on. Maybe some cabins, but nothing. We don't really like the Airbnb component as much. And I think that's dying, to be honest, in a
Hmm.
lot of
I agree.
industries.
I
The
agree.
RV is still here to stay. So what we're looking for is we want, somewhere somebody needs to live, because that was our whole investment thesis at the beginning was if we need to make this affordable housing, we can do that because we're in good areas, right? So we're looking for 78% full hookup, water, sewer, electric.
Hmm.
And we want 100 plus sites. We'll settle for 75 sites in a good location, but minimum for us is typically 100. Doesn't matter if it's transient, seasonal, or long term. 100 is typically our minimum in a good location. And that's the bare bones what we're looking for. And that is harder to come by at a good price, but that's what we're looking for. And we're not
Yeah.
we're actually switching back to MH a little bit because I think there's
Yeah.
some opportunity there that a lot of people got out of the business overall, and went back and realized MH is just as tough. And they're going back to other asset classes that they came from. So I think there's some opportunity there for us, but we're still RV buyers, but we're not as hot and heavy as what we were. So.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly believe that the typical MH and RV owner, particularly the private equity side, we're just different. There's a there's a different mindset. You have to be much more flexible, much more creative than the we'll just call it multifamily, syndicator. Like that's a cookie cutter you can go over and over again. So Ryan, thank you. Uh, Truly very honest and real approach to this industry, and then sharing a lot about you and your company. So we'll wrap it up here. I've got just a couple questions, and then love for you to be able to share how listeners can connect with you and learn more, invest with you, etc. Want to make sure we have that opportunity. So, as we wrap this up, uh, in our brand Unhitched, the slogan or one of the key core values that we have is this idea of disconnecting to reconnect, right? It seems like an oxymoron, but you mentioned it. Like most RVers get to a spot, you get set up, you unhook the truck, you there, put the stands out, put the thing out, and then now you're done, right? And it's like a literal walking through a gate of dropping what's behind you, and then now you can just spend time with each other. You can spend time with nature. You can spend time with God's creation, etc. So that's what we're trying to bring. So what is it in your life that you use to find that disconnection point and then reconnecting? Is there a hobby, water sports? What do you do to reconnect?
Yeah, you may be able to see. I don't really have it blurred, but I got some fish stuff and
Yep.
I think it's a pheasant hunting thing. So, a lot of it is just like being on. I live in Charleston. Where I'm typically on the water. One thing I was really proud of this year is not necessarily business success. Was like every Friday morning I fished. I think in the summer, almost
Nice.
every, and I'm by myself. So like it's not like I'm out there by myself. So I have no problem being by myself, which a lot of
Yeah.
entrepreneurs that's typically normal. It's a typically
Hmm.
lonely environment, even if you're married and that your wife's in the business, your husband's in the business too. It's so I fish a lot, just being on the
Yeah.
water. Or honestly just like I don't mind like traveling to the parks by myself. That's a lot of times. I do enjoy that because you have a lot of road time. I drive a lot. So really just being on the water is number one for me.
Okay.
And then kind of just I do like reading and working out, but that's your typical answer, right? For me, it's being on the water, fishing, whether I'm by myself or just literally just driving the boat around, is number one for me. So
Awesome. Well, that's hard to beat some time on the water, especially in the morning fishing. Beautiful. Charleston's a beautiful area. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ryan, so much. How can other people connect with you? Tell us how to find you.
yeah, so our website's treesidecapital.com. You can reach out through there. I'm on just my name, Ryan Groene, Groene. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. shoot me a message. I'm on all the kind of social platforms, not on TikTok. I am on Twitter, but I'm not, or X or whatever the heck it's called now. But mainly Instagram and Facebook is where I'm at. And then reach out. Happy to have a conversation with folks. I don't charge anything. I'm happy to connect. So
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for being on Riches and the Hitches.